I remember this man that we're about to talk about being put on this pedestal, and I told y'all this was a mistake. But I think there are a lot of naive people who just want to see the good in people, and they want to see the good in folks that are particularly lifetime folk that been in Hollywood and part of their subcultures that they belong to. So they don't want to believe that they would dare stab them in the fucking back. Here's an interesting thing that happened recently, and maybe you guys are familiar with this story. Obviously, with a recent passing, Jeopardy needed a host. They needed a host, okay? And I sat and watched folk that are generally in my circle on this position put up this Levar Burton cat and say, it's only him. He has to be able to do it. And I'm sitting here watching like, why in the fuck are y'all putting this man on this pedestal? What are y'all doing? He hasn't showed y'all anything that he gives a goddamn about anything that y'all, why are y'all helping aid this man? And y'all did talk to y'all's credit. Y'all spoke it into existence. A lot of let's say people that want to see the good, they think that there's these stragglers in Hollywood that are generally like, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily on the side politically. They're just not these deranged leftists. I told y'all this fool, there's nothing good coming from this unless they have gone out of their way to separate, like the Gina Carano's have gone out of their way. You should be 100% skeptical of basically everybody in Hollywood. Every single one of them. Unless they got simply not speaking on some ain't good enough. Unless they have absolutely said and confirmed themselves that they ain't with the shit, you're fooling yourself. I would argue that you are probably in a better position if you actually just assume that they are deranged leftists. So we're going to listen to what LeVar Burton had to say, and it speaks for itself, but I'll give my commentary.
In terms of cancel culture, I think it's misnamed. That's a misnomer. I think we have a consequence culture, and that consequences are finally encompassing everybody in the society, whereas they haven't been ever in this country.
Jesus Christ.
So I think that there are good signs that are happening in the culture right now, and I think it has everything to do with a new awareness on people who were simply unaware of the real nature of life in this country for people who have been othered since this nation began.
Oh man! All right, let's just break down how disingenuous LeVar Burton is about talking about this, and how disingenuous so many that talk about this concept of cancel culture and like that pretend as if it's just not a thing, or they try to limit it to something else. Now, again, you have to understand how guys like LeVar Burton and a lot of these weirdos operate. They will never concede, and they can't perceive a world in which they are wrong. They simply can't do it. So with that being said, when it comes to this, they act like what you're seeing now is just good thing, an objectively good thing in which people are being basically removed from the face of the earth without being physically removed from the earth. And they deserve every single bit of it. And the people that are doing it aren't being irrational. Again, they can't see a world in which that's the case. Now, because it's happening to people that they generally don't like, they obviously haven't caught the brunt of it, they're going to word it as such, as in it's consequence culture. There's no such thing as cancel culture. because everybody that is being removed from platforms, that has been taken away, lost money because they're being removed from projects. Now, again, I'm not one of those that's saying like the government needs to be involved or anything. I want to be clear because, again, you get those disingenuous, stupid people like, well, you're supposed to be a libertarian. This is the market at work. Now, again, we got to also talk about how the fact that a lot of these institutions are government funded as well. So it's not as black and white as markets acting anyway. Or they're heavily regulated and so forth, like the airlines and stuff. But when it pertains to Hollywood, which again also gets subsidized, this whole year should have shown y'all how much these guys work with the authoritarian left and how much they subsidize, why billions of dollars have been paid to specifically going to Hollywood to perpetuate this vaccine bull crap, or as well as mask and all of that sort of stuff. Ad council, don't take my word for nothing. But I do want to say this. They have to be disingenuous because they have to present themselves as the good folk. They can't see themselves as baddies. Here's the reality, though. Now, I'm going to reiterate some things that you already know, and this is what it is. There is a such thing as what people deem as cancel culture, and I think the vast majority of people that use that term understand that there's a difference between someone having to atone for actually doing something that was wrongful. And there's a difference between that and someone, let's say, having to answer for something that they did 20 years ago or said as a kid, and then that had them being removed from a project, or somebody taking something out of context, or taking an isolated event and defining their entire being based upon that, as if everybody is a perfect human being. And does that warrant having to be just completely removed from everything? Like what happened to Gina Carano, for example, was nonsense. That was absolute nonsense. What happened there just was complete nonsense. It was uncalled for. It was irrational. And again, I think this is the biggest frustration of a lot of these people, is that it's not, the playing field isn't level here when it comes to who they apply these concepts to in their consequences, right? We saw that as an example. We had one of the recent examples with Gina Carano. Whereas you have literal coworkers that have not only made the same exact sort of, reference to Nazi Germany, right? Pedro Pascal and such, who have remained untouched. Yet because a person is on a different side of the political spectrum, well, now it's permissible to. Levar Burton is being disingenuous, but he's talking to a group of people that have talked about this not even a concept. It's more of this entire conversation has been disingenuous from the jump. The minute they tried to separate it, like, oh, it's consequences. So you can't talk about the irrational concepts of the cancel culture. Well, people you're talking about people that get removed from platforms and just their entire work just gets destroyed because of something that is generally like minute. It's something so small. It's something like, why? But that's where we're at now, because what these people are telling on themselves, they want to remove folks that don't think like them, particularly in the social or political sphere, because again, they have all the right ideas. Let them tell it. So they don't want people in positions of influence, is more so what it is. They don't want people of influence that are different from them. So that's why they're so aggressive. They were so aggressive against Gina Carano, for example. She was part of this major franchise, but she didn't think like them. And not only that, she was pretty open with the fact that she wasn't with a lot of, let's say, the general scale of Hollywood in terms of their political preferences. They hate that shit because that comes with a set of influence. So they want you completely removed and stripped away of all influence. They want your life to be miserable. And this is why I've said time and time again, when it comes to responding to these guys, I think the way is to put, I don't expect you guys to remove yourselves entirely from what it is that these guys are a part of, right? Some of you guys are Star Trek fans. Some of you guys are reading Rainbow. That was part of your childhood. I'm just using that as an example. I don't expect more so you guys that are fans of DC, Marvel, current Marvel, or just Marvel in general, DC, Star Trek, Star Wars, all these other things that you guys grew up with that are just a part of your culture. I don't expect you to remove yourself entirely from it. I think that's unrealistic of an expectation. What I will say is this. If you put, let's say, 51%, instead of going 90% into people that hate you and getting egg with your face, like you guys spoke Levar back into the public sphere with the whole Jeopardy thing, and he just spit on all of y'all's face. How about y'all put 51% of your effort and support to people that are not only alternatives, but are good at alternatives, being an alternative, and are more importantly open with the fact that they ain't with that shit. Doesn't mean that they are where you're at politically. I'm not saying you have to support someone that's where you're at politically. Gina Carano and I aren't on eye to eye politically, for example. I'm talking about people that obviously understand like Hollywood and this general concept of what actual cancel culture is as a problem. How about you put that effort, that money, that support towards folks that 51%, that's all I ask, towards people that are viable alternatives, not alternatives just for the sake of being alternatives and just putting out dog shit and think they should be supported just because they're an alternative. No, I'm talking about people that are actually good at what it is that they're doing. Because what you're probably going to need to see with Hollywood and combating this is, I think that is done, right? That Hollywood is the echo chamber that it is. I think what you're going to need to see is not even just Hollywood adjacent. You're just going to have to see something that's different. And it needs to be big. It needs to be big. It needs to be influential. And it has the potential to be that. There's enough of y'all out there that support the work of people that hate you. There's enough of you guys out there that can reroute just half of it, just a little over half of it, 51% of it, towards folk that don't hate you, that won't get an award from the support that you gave them, and then use the platform that they have to then tell you you're the worst person in the world, and that this consequence culture is more so what it is. Like you're just being like, what you see isn't a thing. Textbook gaslighting. That's all I'm saying. There's also other ways that you can still get, like, for example, Marvel and stuff. Back issues, baby. Back issues, baby. So there are ways. There are ways. But I do think there's going to have to, like, this is just yet another example of you guys fucking fooling yourselves, in which you think that these guys that are generally being part of Hollywood give a fuck about you. And again, if they don't actually say it, if like you, again, Gina Carano has more balls than basically everybody in Hollywood, because she's fucking open with it. Like, I am what I am. You're going to do what it is that you're going to do. And you got a bunch of dickheads that may be on the fence with the shit, and they may not say it, and y'all think that, okay, well, it's a chance that they are one of us. And y'all throw y'all support, then they get all this power and influence. Levar Burton, again, y'all spoke him back into the public sphere, only for him to spit in your face. Just take it into consideration. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.